Shavuot fell. Was that grammatically? Yeah, that's how I wanted to say it, right, Paul? All right. So we are doing something really special tonight, which is we are combining the joy of Shabbat, the joy of Shavuot, let me say the joys of Shabbat, the joys of Shavuot, and the joys of community. What that means, particularly this evening, is we are going to have a short Shabbat service. We are going to have what Michael has started lovingly referring to as an intermission, in which we will go help ourselves to the traditional food of Shavuot. Anybody know the traditional foods of Shavuot? I've been advertising it all week. Yes, that is the New Yorker's official food of Shavuot, by the way. I'm pretty sure they didn't have it, thousands of years ago in the desert, but any dairy products is traditionally how you celebrate Shavuot. It is one of the many agricultural festivals that we have incorporated into our Israelite and then our Jewish tradition. And so it is a season of weaning at this time in that region. And so there would be an abundance of milk products. I did not bring you goat milk cheesecake, though. I brought you the regular stuff. So I think we should be okay. And I think we have almost every variety that I can think of in terms of dairy-free, gluten-free, and I believe there's one other option free. There are no calorie-free foods, not a single one. But it is guilt-free because you're supposed to eat it for the holiday. So I'll give it to you on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to sing ourselves into Shabbat. We are so grateful for you two to be offering us all of the joy and the musicality that Shir Tikvah is known for, even if its rabbi is not. And we are going to hopefully have a B'nai Mitzvah student who will add their light into our sanctuary as well. We may delay our candle lighting a little bit to see if we can buy a little time. And we will then pray our way into this celebration together. Does that work for everybody? Good, because I can't change the plan now. Yeah, you guys, there you go, perfect. We have some of the B'nai Mitzvah family here, so we can always have the opportunity to light candles and bring joy. We start with the words on page 2, the words that are at the heart of so much of what we do at Shir Tikvah. Hine ma tov, how good it is to be together. Let us turn to Lecha Dodi. We're going to prepare ourselves for Shabbat, for her entrance into our sanctuary, our community, and our hearts. We will be doing the short form of Lecha Dodi this evening. So it is just the words Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, there it is, Pnei Shabbat Nikabala, and then the addition of the words Shabbat and Shalom. So we will wish each other a Shabbat and a Shalom. And when we reach the second time we sing this Lecha Dodi, I'll make my gesture. It's an invitation to rise, to turn to the back of the sanctuary, to welcome Shabbat in. If we have community members whose cameras are on, we'll get to see their faces. And if not, we'll just know that we're sending our love out into our community. You may be seated. We seem to be down a screen, so we are assuming that you all who are out there saw us, and just know that we see you in our hearts. We are going to turn back to the candle blessing on page 1. I always think of the moment we add light into a sanctuary as a chance for us to reflect on moments of goodness and moments of potential and moments of growth. And it is with great joy that we are celebrating 2 joyful moments in our sanctuary this evening. Mime is becoming B'nai Mitzvah tomorrow afternoon, and we are so delighted you are here to help lead our service, as well as you would not believe the extraordinary job they did preparing for tomorrow's service. So I am very much looking forward to both opportunities to stand alongside you. And Beth, we have been saying your name since your fall in February. There has not been a week that we have not thought of you and missed you. And so to have you back in our sanctuary is a moment of great transition for us, of return. And so I'd like to invite Mayim and their family and Beth up to the bima. Each will light a candle, adding some light, some potential, some joy into our sanctuary. And we're down all of our screens. Nope, we're not. Oh, great, we got it back. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של Shabbat Shalom. You may return to your seats, but not you, Mayim. Sorry. So close, you almost got away from me. We turn to page 15, rising in body or in spirit as we are able for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ba'ama divarach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'kayei dechol beit Yisrael Bagala ubizman kariv Ve'imeru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, Le'olam Lo Me'omaya, Yidbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yidpa'ar, V'yidron, V'yidnaseh, V'yidhadar, V'yidhale, V'yidhala, Shmei Dekudashah, Brechu, Le'ela, Min Kol Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechemata, Damiram Ba'ama, Ve'imeru, Amen.
Remaining standing, we turn to page 16, calling each other home into this sanctuary with the words of Baruch Hu, dear one. Bottom of page 17, to join our voices in the invitation to listen, to live, to stand in witness to the unity of all life with the words of the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai
On page 18, the first paragraph of the Ve'ahavta, the invitation to fill our days and our nights, our comings and our goings, with acts of love in response to the unity of all. We'll chant the first paragraph of page 18 and move directly to the second paragraph of page 20 if you're following in our prayer books. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. In the Shema and her blessings, this part of the service, the rabbis are telling us a story. It is the story they imagine of the universe starting in creation and continuing in love and unity and ending in freedom for all. And the fact that the rabbis were not free when they wrote this story, I find great comfort in. And so we turn to the words of Mi Chamocha, the words the rabbis relied on to remind themselves that the potential of freedom is always ahead and that there are tastes available along the way. Mi Chamocha. It's an honor to invite you back to the Bima to lead us in the Amidah, the series of prayers at the heart of our service. We rise in body or spirit, turning to page 25.
I don't
On October 7th, the hearts of the Jewish community worldwide broke. And for the 608 days since, they have remained broken. There is something inexplicable, visceral, about the interconnectedness of the Jewish people around the world. And through our prayers, we have tried to give voice to that connection, to the connection to those who have been held hostage for these 608 days. And because we at Shir Tikvah believe that hearts can grow infinitely, and that love can hold multitudes, we have opened our hearts to all who have been held hostage by the ongoing fallout, the war, the destruction that has fallen in Gaza since that day. And we have opened our hearts to those communities here in America in these last months whose freedom has already been curtailed or is threatened. And we offer these words of prayer for redemption for all who are in need. I'd ask you to join with me. Our family, the whole house of Israel, who are in distress or in captivity, who stand either in the sea or on dry land, may the Omnipresent have mercy on them and take them out from trouble to blessing, and from darkness to light, and from oppression to redemption, now, swiftly, and soon. Amen. We turn to page 130, to words that ask for healing, for a refuah shlema, a return of wholeness, a healing of body, of mind, of spirit. This week, our community is praying for Martha Berman, for Alan Travis, for our beloved Beth, who I'm pretty sure is watching online because she can't really stay that far away. That's my bet. For Barney W. and Mali Capistani. Beth, we have been saying your name, and I still see a crutch, so we're going to keep saying your name, praying for continued journey towards healing. For David Bricklin Small, for Barney Weinstock and Joel Bressler, Sandy Waxman, Dan Fine, Liliana Wolheim Martinez, Lynn Bishop, the dear friend of Paul Schlickman, for Harriet Snyder, Liz Brooks's mom, Ann Cobble, for Nan's sister whose wrist is healing, we hope, Ed Snow, Stanley Roth, Ayelet Gal Barchava Hirsch Shmuel, Tori Macia, Kyle Warren, Sarah Kianowski, for Dave Carbonneau, for Ken Doucette, Debbie Gilman, Neil Daniels Midman, for Andy, Joyce, Adele, Roger, for Jenny Vanderpool, for Annie Graham and her family, Anya Cobble, and Sue Boardman. If there are people in your lives who are in need of healing and you'd like to say their name here in the sanctuary, please raise your hand and be an honor to call on you. you are joining us digitally and praying for someone, please share their name using the chat. We'll pray the words together on the right side of page 130. Mayim, would you please join me on the bima to lead us in this prayer? Turn back to page 44, opening our hearts to those whose presence we feel long after their lives have ended. When we say their name in this community, we make a promise that we will live our lives in ways that honor them and the lessons they taught us. This week, we are acknowledging the yard sites of Maurice Goldstein, of Henry Tovey, the beloved father of Roberta Tovey, of Sandy Bear, the beloved wife of Barry Kahn and the mother of Jesse Bear Kahn and Liza Shirazi. And Steve, we are remembering your beloved Sue on her third yard site, and so honored you are here with us in this act of memory. If there is someone you are remembering whose name you'd like to say aloud here in our sanctuary, please raise your hand. It'd be an honor to call on you. Naomi.
Sarah Lutz, my sister-in-law.
My friend, Eric Peterson.
My brother-in-law, Jim Coulson. My good friend, Bruce Lotto.
If you are joining us online and remembering someone whose name you'd like to share, please do so in the chat. We rise in body or in spirit for the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivarach, le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudasha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiram be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be an abiding blessing. Together we say, Amen. You may be seated. Just a few announcements before one last prayer together, and then you all know the custom of Shavuot of studying until at least midnight, right? Promise I won't keep you till midnight, but it is a custom. Next week is our Pride Shabbat. There are prompts in the weekly emails that are coming out so that we can hear the voices of our community members. So we invite you to look for those in this week's email announcements, and you'll have an opportunity to write your answers once you get here in the sanctuary. So you don't have to come with pre-written answers, but you can mull it over in your head so you don't feel rushed. And if you'd like to prepare for that beautiful service that we share, there are 2 opportunities here in Winchester this week to do so. This Tuesday, June 10th, that is this Tuesday, right? Okay. Whew. This Tuesday, June 10th, is Winchester's Pride Fest. Temple Shir Tikvah has a table there. There will be great books for the queer community. There'll be information about our community in general and a chance to just gather in celebration and pride here in Winchester. I may or may not be bringing a golden retriever with rainbow painted ears as part of Pride Fest. So if you are a dog person, please feel free to come paint the dog's ears. He thinks that's fun for some reason. We also have an exhibit that is happening just down the road in Ripley Chapel called We Have Faith. It is a beautiful exhibit, and it is celebrating queer clergy and people of faith through photography and stories. It is only open through June 10th, so we only have a couple more days, but I do strongly, strongly, strongly recommend it. And if you haven't been in Ripley Chapel before, it in and of itself, do you know what Ripley Chapel is? So you know our big neighbors down the block, First Congregational? They have what they lovingly refer to as a little sanctuary, and I just call the sanctuary. But for them, it's the small one, and it's been redone and turned into a community space as well as a prayer space. It is spectacular. They're having a musical performance there this evening. They host art shows. Now I feel like I'm advertising for First Congregational, but they're lovely to us, so I probably should. So, but this is in particular, they dropped this off for us to pass along to our community members, and it's a strong recommendation. And finally, we have to say a mazel tov to you. It is such a joy to be celebrating your B'nai Mitzvah tomorrow afternoon, and to your family who has come to celebrate with you this evening. We're so glad you're here, and we look forward to more tomorrow. Okay, so now we're going to sing Oseh Shalom, and then we're going to eat cheesecake. All right? But what you're going to do is you're going to go get cheesecake. It's not quite like oneg. It's cheesecake and back. okay? Cheesecake and back. Repeat after me. Cheesecake and back, okay? I'm afraid I'm losing you to the cheesecake in this situation, but we'll sing ourselves into the sweetness of this celebration with Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom B'Roma, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. We're going to do kiddush and motzi and then cheesecake. So Mayim, when I said you were done, I lied into a microphone. So I need you back. I'm sorry. I know it was so close. You hold that cup up nice and high. Together we make the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Will you take a sip? I like your style. That's good. And please make some sort of chain, either by reaching forward, asking permission to touch, or to just lean towards a person for you for connection, as we create a chain of blessing for the motzi. You and I can do this. Ready? And we reach out to them. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Hold on. All right, now it's cheesecake, I promise. Head on back. Yeah, hold on one sec, I'll get it for you. Shabbat Shalom. Yep, be careful though, because I'm still waving a knife around, okay?
Nothing stops you.
That's fair. That's how I feel about challah too. I completely understand. Yes, thank you,
So is
Aaron.
David home?
He's home. He came home about 5:45, yeah.
How's he doing? You all right?
I mean, All right. Once you have gotten yourself some cheesecake and something to drink, please come back to your seats. And if you have not yet, you can stay in line, of course. Oh, you're too social, all of you. You like each other so much. I know. So we are going to start the Torah study with people still in line, and that is A-okay. You can feel free to shoot your hand up from the line. You can feel free to completely ignore what's happening in Torah study until you have been given your promised cheesecake. You can feel free to manage this any way you want to manage it. I would not. Thank you, though. Yeah. All right, while I am moving people back to their seats, I have a question for you. What is traditionally recited in the sanctuary on Shavuot? We're starting out with trivia. Trivia. Say it louder, hi. The 10 Commandments. That was not a good guess. It was a brilliant guess. Not just good, but great. All right. Anybody know the 9th commandment off the top of your head? And by the way, I had to look up which number it was I was talking about, so this is truly not a test of your counting. But does anybody happen to know, Andy, the 9th commandment off the top of your head? Andy said it, and he said it the way the text says it. So Andy said it is to not bear false witness against your neighbor. What's the colloquial for that? What do you usually hear? Don't lie, right? Don't lie. I think technically they usually say thou shalt not lie, but it's don't lie, right? That's the commandment we're going to be talking about today. Don't lie. Now, if that commandment had been on the positive side of the commandments, how? That's a Yael Levy interpretation, by the way. That's not the original text. That's what she thinks don't lie might be translated to meaningfully. If you can think of a way to say it either in the negative, as in don't, or in the positive, as in do, can you raise your hand and share it? What's another way? Can you Yael Levy these commandments and say another way to say number 9 is either don't, ... or do, ... Jacob.
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth. Plain and simple, right? Naomi, was that yours? Or Paul, you just said something very, very important. Stand up. Everybody, look what Paul said when I said tell the truth. Very, very simple, right? Say more about, would you?
Sometimes it's not exactly kind to tell the truth or necessary.
Kind, necessary. Those are part of what a person might think about when thinking about how to use their words for power.
Tell what you believe to be true.
Clarify. I think I know what you think, what you're thinking, but I shouldn't guess, so tell me more.
What you think is true and what I think is true, Carrie, are not always the same thing.
Not the same thing. Truth is not a universal. We're not all holding the same truth, right? So when you are speaking a truth, you can only speak, I think I keep cutting out, don't I? Yeah. Should I just turn this off and speak into this? Choose one. I can't choose one because I have to hand this around, so I'm going to take this one. I'm going to choose the old-fashioned one. How's that? No? You don't love that? I'm asking the sound people because they have more of an opinion, more of an educated opinion than I do. So hold on one second. I don't know how to do what it. Oh, turn this on and off. Oh, now I'm confused. Okay. Okay. How about this? But you know I wave my hands, so this is going to be hard for me. What were we? Universal truth. Truth is not universal, and so we may not be holding the same truth as our neighbor. We have two here.
Sometimes it's not safe to say the truth.
I want to add and get back to the bear false witness, which is do justice for your neighbors. This is totally different.
Justice for your neighbors. So Beth is pointing out that the end of the sentence is relational, right? It's about how you connect to the person next to you.
The whole truth.
Whole truth. Ooh, that could take a while, right?
Yeah, I also wanted to emphasize the relational aspect of it. I think it's integral to the commandment. It's about treating your neighbor like you would want to be treated.
So it's that it can return to the Hillel rule, right? That all Torah is relational, right? And it's all about the interpersonal nature of it, and this is the words that create those relationships. So there was a text that I was taught about a month ago, but in a teaching by Rabbi Tali Adler, who teaches at Hadar, an amazing institute, and I loved this text, and I have spent the last month with this text, and I wanted to share it all with you. So we are going to turn to a text from the Talmud. So those of you who are doing the Daf Yomi experience, have you done Yoma yet? Yeah, so you've done this text? Years ago, perfect. Then anything I say is true, right? We're talking about truth. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to read it. It is a translation. Talmud is full of holes. It skips words. Sometimes it skips whole sentences. So I don't know how it ends up where it ends up. I think this text makes it, I would say, 80% of the way to comprehensible, but I don't think it makes it more than 80%. So the first thing we're going to do as a community is we're going to make sure we understand what the text is all about as we go through these 3 slides. And then we're going to answer a bunch of questions about it. But I'm going to keep us on time. We are going to be out by 11:59. And I'm going to keep making that joke. It's fine. I'm going to keep us moving, at least initially, on just making sure we're all on the same page or screen, as the case may be. So the first part of this text says, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, "Why are they called the members of the Great Assembly? Because they returned the crown to its former glory." Am I doing something that's making that buzzing? Oh, it's coffee. Yes. Because they returned the crown to its former glory. Moshe came and said in his prayer, and you would know these words if you heard them in Hebrew, "The great, the mighty, and the awesome God, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanorah." Those words are attributed in Deuteronomy 10:17 to Moses. So we start off with a rabbi. They tell you which rabbi. He then, oh wait, go back for me. Thank you. He then says, why are they called the men of the Great Assembly? He was not talking about the Great Assembly before this, by the way, just to clarify. He just thought he'd ask the question. Has anybody heard the term the Great Assembly before? No? So has anybody been to a B'nai Mitzvah service here while I have been the rabbi? Yes, you have? Okay. I get to say to every B'nai Mitzvah student who stands on our bima, one of the most outrageously meaningful things a person could say. I get to say to them, or recite to them, the very beginning of the book of Pirkei Avot, which was written, let's call it about the year 200, and I get to say to them, this Torah, which Moses got on Sinai, side note, we all know I don't think that's a literal thing, right? Okay. Moses got it on Sinai. Moses passed it to Joshua. Joshua passed it to the men of the Great Assembly, who passed it to the elders, who passed it to the prophets, who passed it down through all the generations. And then I get to turn to Mayim tomorrow and say, while Mayim is standing next to their parents and their grandparents, it's come all the way to you. For 2,500 years, people have taken this text and they've taken care of it for their lifetime. They've made meaning from it, and then they've given it over in this act of trust, right? And so he says, this Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, the men of the Great Assembly, why do we call them that? What was so great about them is what he's asking. Does that make sense? And the answer is, nope, sorry, we still didn't go ahead. Sorry, go back for me one more. And the answer is because they returned the crown to its former glory. What does that mean? That's what we're here to figure out. Okay? So, we're going to start with this sentence. Moses said, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora. We say it in our Amidah, right? Moses said, God is great, mighty, and awesome. And now we can switch ahead. But Yirmiyahu came along and said, and Jeremiah lived at the time of the destruction of the temple. He said, the Gentiles are carousing in this sanctuary. What do you mean by awesome? Right? Where's this awesomeness I'm supposed to be witnessing? And so he did not say awesome in his prayers anymore. Right? Jeremiah is given a piece of the tradition that says, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanorah, and he says, Hanorah, the awesome one, I'm not seeing it in the world I'm living in, and so I'm not going to say it anymore. Make sense? Andre, you have a question? Carousing. Oh, it means that it was turned into, it was no longer a place for sacred activity, but for party activity. Excellent question. So it's almost as, yes, it's like somebody brought cheesecake into the sanctuary. It's awful. So people are partying in the sanctuary, good example, Hi, and Jeremiah says, well, that's nuts, right? You can't do that in there. And so I'm not going to say awesome, because how can I say awesome if this is what I'm living in witness to? Make sense? Okay, we're going to keep going. Daniel, another prophet living similar time period, comes along and he says, the Gentiles are enslaving his children. Where is God's might? Where is that Gibor? And so he did not say mighty. Daniel does the same thing. He looks around at the world. He says, this world is not lining up with these words of the tradition. I can't say it. I just can't. But the members of the Great Assembly came along, and they said, on the contrary, this is the might of his might, that God conquers his inclination and exercises patience towards the wicked. So what does the Great Assembly say? Anybody make sense of that sentence? The might of his might? Yeah, Amy.
Just that, this is how God is showing strength.
Okay, good. There is strength being shown here, right? Strength in restraint. So you were thinking strength is about being able to win in battles because you're taking the members of the community away as slaves. But no, that's not what we mean when we say might. We mean strength in restraint, right? That something else is happening. Yeah, Melissa. They are the leaders of who are the members of the Great Assembly was the question. They are the leaders of the community in exile. So in the second exile, and as opposed to Yirmiyahu and Daniel who are living through the first. So they are looking back at that time period, which has a lot to do with their time period, for examples of how to live in relationship with this tradition, right? And what they have is they have two pretty prominent examples of, well, just cut it, right? It doesn't work, so I'm not going to say it. Okay to keep going or questions? Keep going. Might of his might. And these are God's awesomenesses. Awesome. I don't think that's the word. Were it not for the awesomeness of the Holy One, how could one people survive among the nations? So yes, it's true, we're living in exile. Previous generations have been sent into exile, have lost their freedoms at different times. But what are the members of the Great Assembly saying? What's the but? Have patience. I like have patience. What else are they saying? Jacob?
That Jews as a people still exist, even though there's no country that is their own.
Yeah, but there's a miracle here, even in this terrible situation. Jews still exist. They're one tiny little nation. They could not. And instead, you have a community that is in the act of rebuilding itself. So what are the rabbis of the Great Assembly saying on this second one? Annie.
That somehow we survive. That somehow we survive, and that is because of God's awesomeness. Not only do we survive as a people. We survive as a people without a nation state.
Mm-hmm. Right. So again, you thought that awesome was X, Y, or Z, right? Was freedom, or living as your own nation in a nation state, or whatever you defined awesome as. And that might be awesome. You know what else is awesome, the rabbis of the Great Assembly seem to be saying? Look, we're still here as a nation, right? We haven't disappeared despite the loss of the nation state, despite what could have been the end. It's not the end, right? So they are, again, saying, maybe we have to think again about what it is, what these words, we're sort of making the assumptions of what they mean. But is that assumption necessary? And is it necessarily true? All right, next slide. And Yirmiyahu and Daniel, how could they do this? How could they uproot an ordinance instituted by Moshe? I mean, it's a bold move, right? Moses says, God is Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora, and you come along and say, Moses, who spoke face to face to God, you're wrong. I'm not seeing it, so I'm not going to say it. Right? It's a pretty bold move if you think about it. Rabbi Elazar said, so this is another rabbi in the Great Assembly, he comes along to try and defend. He says, because they know of the Holy One, of the Holy Blessed One, that God is truthful, and therefore they did not speak falsely of him. So what did Daniel and Jeremiah do according to Rabbi Eleazar? Andre, yeah?
They spoke their truth.
They spoke their truth, right? Their experience had to be honored in their words. They could not, in good conscience, say of a God who they believe to be a God of truth, a truthful God, a God who desires truth, they could not, in good conscience, stand up and say these words. So, they didn't. What do you think the authors of the Talmud think of Jeremiah and Daniel? And what do you think they think of the men of the Great Assembly? Can you tell? Is the text condemning them? Is it uplifting them? What is this text saying about them?
I think it says that there's different perspectives.
Say more. Sorry, don't ever take a mic.
I think, here it's saying what Jeremiah, you and Daniel think, but the Talmud is basically a dialogue between different sages through centuries discussing how we should interpret the Torah. And so it depends. It depends on which sage is speaking.
Exactly, right? It depends on which sage is speaking, and it's reminding you, the Talmud is built to remind you that there have to be different perspectives, right? So this text comes along and it gives you an example that happens not just the way the Talmud does, where they set up conversations between different generations. But here they go all the way back to the generation of Moses and say, even Moses, even the words of Moses, even all the way back, you still got to put your truth into conversation with that text. You can't just bow to it, right?
So, okay, I'm just going to do a teeny bit of Daf Yomi here, because if you go back to the first page, tech people, okay, one more, you'll see that here it's Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi who's making the first statement, who's asking the question, okay, and then we come to Moses, and then we go to the next page, and we hear the words of the two prophets, and then we go to the final page, and now we have another rabbi coming in and saying, wait a minute, Yehoshua ben Levi, what they said was because they know da-da-da. So all of Talmud is this long series of intense conversations between many, many rabbis who are then claiming their teachers' names and so on and so forth. And so it's this really interesting document in this way, if you can stand it, which can be hard.
Right, so this is a conversation that happens over thousands of years, right? And where there is a presumption of the desire for truth, but there is not the presumption of a truth, right? There is not the idea that, well, one of us is going to uncover the thing. In fact, it almost is built as if it's a demonstration that there is no thing, right? There is no truth out there. There is conversation and there is search, there is meaning, there is interpretation, there is engagement, but there may not be an answer, right? Aaron?
I think they're also modeling creative thinking. They're taking a difficult situation and recasting it in order to remain hopeful and to continue on.
I love that. So they're refusing, they're refusing to give too much weight to the now, or to the darkness of now, and lose some of what has happened in the past. And it means that they have to reinterpret what's going on and what the words mean. And they do it all the time. Yes.
So I want to go back to I think it's the previous one where they talk about God has patience. And I think that's a recognition that the wicked aren't always punished. That's the reality of the world. And I know the Talmud was very, very concerned about this. And so I think that's what they're talking about. In one aspect that they're talking about is that not only are there multiple truths, but that the wicked do not always get punished.
Yeah, the question of the fairness of the world, right, is not a question that the Talmud is particularly interested in. Their answer is, it's not that fair, right? You may not see the good being blessed and the bad being cursed because history and the universe is so much bigger and longer, and you don't have the full picture of it, right? So you can't presume that the piece you're looking at is going to answer your question on this issue necessarily. Good. Susan?
Actually, maybe a question for Beth. This is just the way of the world, that the wicked aren't punished. I don't think you're saying that the wicked will be punished later if only you knew what was going to happen next, like Rabbi Carey just said. I think you're saying something different. And I kind of like what you say because it's helpful to remember that life isn't fair and that there is no, there's no guarantee, there's no necessarily justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think humans, like particularly good humans, like to think that justice will always balance out. And I think Martin Luther King said we'll always bend toward justice. That's not the reality. The reality is there's a lot of arbitrariness in this world. And I think these people, the rabbis in the Talmud recognize that. And many of them lived through very horrible times.
So again, and we will come to this side, I promise, not ignoring you, I promise. So again, if you think about how we were talking about the multiple truths, right? The rabbis are holding that the world isn't fair, right? And they're also holding this idea that it is their job to somehow reinterpret this tradition in the darkest of moments to give them hope. And that those two are not necessarily mutually exclusive activities. That by redefining words such as gibor v'norah, strength and awesomeness, so that they can be meaningfully useful in a lifetime, it doesn't mean that you're making an ultimate claim about the fairness of the universe, right? It doesn't necessarily make that claim. It's possible for the rabbis to hold that the universe isn't looking particularly fair at this time, and that they may never have access to the fairness of it. They don't know about the fair. There's not a lot about the afterlife or any of those things, right? It's just not their interest. It's how do we live this life, right? And one of the things that they answer is the one that Aaron came up with, which is you keep reinterpreting for hope, right? Even in the face of destruction. And whether that reinterpreting for hope means you just gotta not say the words sometimes because they make you angry, right? And you don't want to say them in a sanctuary and feel like you're lying in a sanctuary, or whether the hope is you reinterpret them so they mean something else that you can model your life off of, right? Both of those are possible within this tradition and are invited within this tradition.
My question is, what's the mechanism of reconciling, balancing two ideas. One is recognizing that the truth is different for different people, but the idea, a necessity, practical necessity to have a common ground so we can have a service, that we can have something in common, because this is its requirement for nation building. That's the question.
Beautifully said. That's the question, right? Your truth has to be in the context of the community, right? If your truth is leading you to a mountaintop, it might be beautiful up there. You might be having a spiritual moment, right? But that's not what these people are doing, right? These people are interested in building communities of truth, right? And so it has to be done in the context of the conversation. And I think what they're doing is they're not making it a prescription, but they're giving you an example, or they're giving you multiple examples in this text of how. Sometimes you cut, but don't forget what you cut, if you can. Sometimes you reinterpret, because you can, and it's meaningful and additive. And always you stay in communication between the generations and each other, so that you are not floating off into a different place, right? And I wish that there was a formula. It would make board meetings much easier. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But it's, I think that's very much the question that they are asking. Exactly. Neil.
This is a little bit of a different perspective on which I have a roughly 60% level of confidence in expressing. But thank you. I'm wondering whether, I'm thinking about the relationship between God and humanity. There's the punitive God, there's the loving and supportive God and compassionate, and so the harsh God. And so in thinking about that relationship and the perceptions, about that relationship, I wonder whether the exercise of that patience also involves what I would call the wisdom of forbearance, which is to say, on this one, they're going to have to figure it out. I'm not going to come down hard on the wicked. And if they can figure it out, that in turn strengthens the community.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful.
I think this section speaks about the misunderstood or different truths that different people have, and where those different truths are knitted together is this idea that there's a God who wants it this way. And so, even though we don't understand it, that core idea is the glue.
I love that. The necessity of some mutually held something, right? In this case, an idea about God, right? But that, I think, and maybe this plays into your question a little bit, that if you don't have shared language, if you don't have a shared something, how do you even get to this knitting or reinterpreting activity, right? And so it begs the question, what are we sharing when we're talking to each other and maybe misunderstanding each other or miscommunicating or misinterpreting or trying our truths but not getting them out in ways that people can hear? We may need to just go back and check, is there a shared something behind that even? Because this text has a shared idea about a God of truth. Beautiful. Andre?
Truth is never really straightforward, in my opinion anyway. I've seen it rarely that straightforward, and that's all I have. But
It's not straightforward?
It's not straightforward.
Yeah. Agreed 110%. I did really well in math. It is not straightforward. The act of communicating, which we do so frequently that we don't even notice we're doing it most of the time, is so complicated and so hard to communicate or to hear what is being communicated to you, because at each of the words we are making assumptions about what it is we are hearing, and the person saying it may be making completely different assumptions. And as Bill said, behind that we have to ask the question, is there a shared cultural something that we're all holding that allows us to even think our words are about the same thing? Yeah, Paul.
Well, I think there's sort of a meta point here in that it's not specifically this page of Talmud. It's that we preserve discourse as opposed to imposing dogma. And it's the discourse and setting a standard for maintaining discourse and discussion that has enabled the tradition to survive.
Well, I hope I'm not taking us off topic, but I want to give another reason why Jeremiah and Daniel might have omitted words. Something special about prophets, they get to talk back to God. So, and I think Jeremiah is the one who said, how long? So Jeremiah might be saying, I'm going to call you great, God, when you start acting great, and I want to see some action here.
Yeah. I love that. And I would add that there are some who believe that the intermediate blessings of the Amidah, which are not traditionally recited on Shabbat, but are recited during the week, are your chance to talk back to God. So I think the question might be, they have a more direct connection for sure, Andy, but perhaps it's an invitation, or they're seeing it as an invitation to all of us in our prayers, to think about the words that are being offered to us, and to really make a relationship with them that reflects our experience, and know that that reflection can still fit within the tradition. It doesn't have to take you outside of it.
So I have a question. I'm wondering, through these conversations, when the Reform movement came about, if this was part of a foundational part of it.
The slightly snarky part of me, which I know you all don't know, I've never seen, says that the driving force in eliminating things in the Reform movement was very practical. They wanted about an hour of prayer, maybe an hour and a half if you really pushed it, but not really. But I do think that they ideologically found permission for the things they were trying to achieve in the rabbinic activity. The rabbinic activity is an enormous 180-degree rewrite of what Judaism had been before that, and Judaism before that had been a 180 on what Israelite peoplehood and cult had been before that. And I don't mean cult in the bad way, I mean sacrificial cult. And so the Reform movement, it did have goals to make itself fit into the larger world, which was non-Jewish, a little more easily. It felt it had permission to do that from within the tradition. And I think it is authentically found there for most Reform Jews, absolutely. And also they liked about an hour of prayer.
Speaking both to what Paul was saying about dogma versus discourse, and what the gentleman in front was saying about how do you have a common piece, to me, our commandment is not to read the Torah, but to study it. And that's what we have in common, and that's what holds us together with so many different ideas.
I mean, I think, given how important the Talmud is, and fundamentally, it's a really, really, really long argument. Right? I mean, it's yeah. And it's the fundamental document. And its arguments are based on different interpretations of the Bible. So, that's the crux of it.
The act itself. If somebody in here said something and you thought to yourself, no, that doesn't do it for me, that idea, you just did something Jewish, right? Good job. You just wrote something on the next page that says, I disagree, but I'm staying in connection and in community and in conversation about it.
Well, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about sort of in the beginning of the conversation about the ninth commandment and speaking the truth to your neighbors. I'm thinking a lot about how unique it is that the Talmud is a book that has opposing viewpoints that are about the same religion. I can't think of any other religious text that does that. I don't know, you're the rabbi, you would know. I think there are, in fact, some other religions and faiths that famously don't do that.
So, sorry, I think I want to lift something up. I really appreciate that comment, and in particular the word you use, which is faith, because there are people, Jewish people, for whom Judaism is very much a faith, and there are people for whom Judaism is very much an activity, and there are people for whom it's both, right? And I love that you brought that into the conversation, because it is so meaningful that Judaism has room for both of those to be the sort of foundational connection to, and that one need not exclude the other for you to participate in the conversation, and that's so important, right? Because in synagogue, you can be sitting next to somebody who's praying beautifully, not so much on the God thing, right? It's not their thing. But they identify and they act and they live and they engage. And Judaism makes no distinction between them and a person who has a connection to the concept of God, right? Both can be, and I hate the term bad Jew, but I'm going to use the term, both can be good Jews, because everybody's a good Jew for that reason. So I want to leave you with these ideas floating around in your head with hope. Because, Aaron, was it you who talked about them in reinterpreting for a new reason, for a new season? Because all of what we just said, the ability to check what you're saying, to make sure it is what you mean to communicate and that it is being received as such, and to hear what you are receiving in that same way, to hold a disagreement without breaking a relationship, to be willing to go back to find answers, and if you don't find them, to chart your own path forward. All of these, I hope, are what build what comes next. Because what is awfully dark right now. But I refuse to say, that's it. And I've seen how most of you live in this world, and you refuse to. And that's because we're doing this sacred activity together. We're gonna keep trying. We're gonna keep communicating. We're gonna keep building community. And we're gonna keep planting seeds of hope. And our hope has to include others. It cannot be done alone. So I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, a Chag Sameach, and I hope you liked the cheesecake. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.